truth, and life. Here is the Brother Leon Show. You better recognize.
What's going on, listeners? This is your boy, Brother Leon, and you are tuning into another episode of the Brother Leon Show. So today, guys, we are going to talk about the value of money with Gregory Clarke. I had the opportunity to meet Gregory Clarke at, oh my God, it was so crazy meeting him because I met him at the Prophetic College with Zoe Ministries. And we became friends on Facebook and everything. And I want you guys to understand and know that this man is no joke when it comes to financial literacy. Because the one thing that I want you to know is this, is that finance has a language. Money has a language. And we have to begin to know what the language is so that we can communicate, so that we can get an understanding of money. Because money, not only is it a language, it is a consciousness. And a lot of times we miss out because we just look at it as just being a tool. But money is more than just a tool. Money, it makes you more of what you are because it changes the mindset of a man. Because the Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. And so when you can begin to understand and know who you are financially, where you are financially, and how to communicate that, then you can maneuver through this life. So, hey, I am so looking forward to talking with Prophet Gregory Clarke today about the value of money. So you guys hold tight. We're going to bring him in.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How you doing, Prophet Clarke?
I'm doing excellent. How are you doing this fine morning, Prophet Temple?
Hey, I am doing great. I was just telling the listeners about the language of money and how, you know, it, not only money is a language, but it's also a mindset. And so I am so thankful to talk to you this morning because we're definitely going to go into that. And so I just want to ask, my first question to you is, who are you?
Well, who am I? Number one, I'm a black man who happens to be married to a powerful black woman and raised 6 black children, who happens to also be a teacher, entrepreneur, business person, and also an ordained minister in the faith. So as I share who am I, those are some of the opportunities that make up who I am at this particular point. But there's so many different layers of foundation that has allowed me to get to this point.
Wow, that is so great. Wow. So hey, I know we're going to go right into it, but I think the first question that I want to ask you, because we're talking about finance, we're talking about money, I want to get your opinion on the whole thing that happened with GameStop.
Well, the whole thing with GameStop, as we started to really break it down, that was definitively a class issue. It wasn't even a color issue, even though there was some semblances of how color was probably involved in it as well. Because as we've noticed during this pandemic, there's a dichotomy happening. Even though there are a bunch of people that we still pray for who are going through the rigors of the adverse side of what's going on with the pandemic, regardless if they contracted the virus or if they lost their position. But then there's another side where you have a community of individuals, regardless if they've been in the stock market for a long time, or even if they're institutional investors whose wealth has jumped up at some point, doubled. Some have more than tripled. We can even, talk about some of the CEOs of some of these, companies, regardless. I'm not going to drop any names here because you can do your research yourself. But some of these individuals have doubled and tripled their wealth during this time frame in less than a year. So there's a big dichotomy going on. But the GameStop issue was you had a class of individuals who are either new in the market, are starting to do their research because of the accesses of technology. The fact of the matter, in certain areas, people are just, in some way stuck at home. Even if they can navigate, there's no really, nightlife and things of that nature. So now people are taking an opportunity to really become abreast of the different markets. And with the whole GameStop and the Reddit and these network boards and things of that nature, they started doing a groundswell. They recognized something called short selling. So by them propping up the stock and talking up the stock and getting other people to invest in the stock, that makes the stock appreciate, which means these institutional guys who are attempting to short the stock are going to lose money. Because if they're shorting the stock, that means they're hoping the stock is going down. They're going to make money as it goes down. But what these young people were doing, or just people in general, were doing were, no, we're going to prop this stuff up. Matter of fact, we're going to keep talking about it. No, we're going to keep asking others to grow in their positions and then hold their positions. And then what happened was it became like a battle of the Titans, David versus Goliath. And right now, David is winning because also there was a point that looked like Goliath was about to come back when you started seeing some of these apps starting to limit or starting to tell you where you can trade or what stocks you were being told that you couldn't even do options on. And it was just becoming a proverbial mess. So they got that rectified quickly, but you still saw how big business was sticking together. Because one thing I can say, I lost a little credibility in Google, as much as I'm a person who loves their products, but I lost a little credibility in Google because when people were starting to put their negative thoughts on referencing what was happening on that particular day, that particular company started erasing some of their interactions or their thoughts or what it is that they have put out in the marketplace about, their experience with the app. That's their right. They have the right to give something a 1 star because you were trying to limit me from growing and growth. I have the ability to feel negative about something because I'm seeing that there's a power play here. So that part of the caveat is in it as well. But overall, we're starting to see a shift. We're starting to shift. This pandemic has now caused people who at most times did not have the opportunity or the ability to be abreast or to see what's going on, recognizing now that, a person can start with a $600 stimulus check. And if they're wise and if they do it smartly, they can turn that $600 into the basis point of, creating wealth.
Wow, that's what it's about, being able to create wealth and having that opportunity. So, it was crazy because, I was actually seeing Robinhood. I'm like, hold up. You can't buy it anymore on Robinhood, and then they say if you already have it, you can sell it, but you can't buy it. And I'm like,
we all experienced that it was crazy. I mean, as much as I'm an ordained minister, believe me, I was saying some choice words that day, where it felt like we were in Charlie Brown, one of those Charlie Brown cartoons when the adults are wah 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 wah. Yeah, you need to do all this stuff right now because I'm looking at my app and with the money I've invested in it and. I'm proud to see my portfolio has grown, and I'm like, okay, I want to jump into this. I'm going to get some puts on that, then I'm going to get some calls on this, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I can't even get stock. Or luckily, some of those stocks I was already watching previously, and I already had jumped in, and I was already starting to see some good gains, and I said, okay, let me jump in and pick up a little more, see if I can get some action on the option side. So if these stocks can appreciate, and you can make some money on the option side. And it's like, nope. It was like, nope, no mops. You can't do anything. And it's like, wait a minute, I have a problem with that. And as we're starting to get the whole family abreast of looking at the market trends and seeing the different apparatuses that we can make funds in other than what you do tangibly, but now you're supposed to be, it's biblical that you're supposed to allow money to make money for you. You're not supposed to be caught up with the bondsman. So when Robinhood was doing that, that just became another little glimpse of not necessarily you saying what you are as your trademark state. You wasn't acting like Robinhood that day. You wasn't helping, and it's not so much that Robinhood was stealing from the rich and giving support, but what Robinhood was supposed to do in those stories was to even up the, give it an even playing field. So that means the person who may be a serf can start to move towards becoming a lord. And that's what it's about. Now it's not, you don't have to go to a big time institution and have $5,000-$10,000. No, you should be able to start where you're at, regardless if it's $20, regardless if it's $50, regardless if it's only $100, wherever you're at. Start investing. That's the main thing that I stress, especially and for those of us of color. And the main thing that I stress in the Value of Money seminars and the collective that I have, the main thing is about making sure Black and brown people recognize now that we are in a season where if you want certain things to be sustainable in your life, part of it is to create your own entrepreneurship, be in business for yourself, but also you still have a career, start figuring out that side hustle that you can eventually evolve and grow. But at the same time, recognize, let's stop being the number one consumers especially in this country, and start recognizing that there's a reason why, even as the government is giving out some of these, stimulus packages, as they call it. It's not really stimulus, but it is what it is. So as you start to see these checks come into the mail or come into your accounts, or, if you're on unemployment and you're getting that little extra, take that little extra and put it someplace else so it can work for you. Don't just throw it back in the consumer markets where you're consuming and not creating.
Yeah, that is definitely the goal. I know we didn't said a whole lot so far. So let me ask you this: How did you get involved in finance? How did you come to learn the language of finance? What was that like?
Well, I've always been a numbers person. One of the things I've recognized, even from a child, I was always good with numbers. And I always had an affinity with the markets because it was basically, I'm seeing these numbers, and, those of you who watch CNBC or Bloomberg and you're looking at the tickers on the bottom and you're trying to figure out, what is going on with these numbers? Why is one green and why is one red? And, and it started, my love of that started probably from middle school, where I was able to start getting, you're a little kid and you get your little one stock of IBM and you're so proud and you get that little, piece of paper that you have along. You're our owner of IBM. So from there, it's like, what does this mean by that I'm an owner? It's not like I can walk into IBM and they'll know who my face. And I started to learn that, that's a share. And that's a share in a public company. And then a public company is, they use those proceeds to help expand their business. And if they're expanding their business and they're allowing themselves to grow. So start to learn the different terminologies. There's so many ways that I started to express myself and started to, dibble dabble. Even one point, I was attempting to be a junior broker, so I saw it from that standpoint. From when you hear, see the movie Boiler Room, I experienced something like that. But that was great because God knew what He was doing, because all this information would come up to bear at one particular point, and it also shows that what you learn, you don't only keep to yourself, but what you're willing to share. Then not only are other people going to be blessed and see possibilities, but then you're able to continue to grow and evolve from that point. So I would say, that's where it broke it down for me. It started as a love and affinity, and then it started becoming an apparatus to say, wait a minute, we got to make sure other people who look like me have some of the same information.
Wow. Thank you for that. So let me ask you this. When it comes to us being consumers, how does the dollar circulate in the Black community compared to other communities?
Well, put it like this. The sad thing, and that's the reason why we're the number one consumers in this country, even though we only make up close to 15% of the population, is that I want to say it so some of your listeners won't feel like I am trying to start up something, but sometimes it is what it is. At the time before we were fighting for desegregation, our dollar would stay in the community a couple of days. It would stay, that little black boy would have his little coin. He had to go to the black grocer, who the black grocer got it from the black farmer, and the black farmer, worked with other farmers, regardless if they finally got out of sharecropping. And then the dollar started circulating. And then, at night, you went to the juke joint that was owned by the black person. You got your little, your little sippy on that was from a black person. So the dollar the dollar was able to get into the community. And then, on Sunday, with all the craziness you did all week, you went to the black preacher, and hopefully you paid your tithes and offerings, so the money would still circulate. And then that black preacher would also, read that and invest back into the community. Nowadays, the dollar may stay in our community maybe 7 hours, whereas when you look at it from a Jewish standpoint, it'll stay in the Jewish community up to about 10 days. Asians have it where it can stay in their community about 17 days. And then the reason why we put whites on the top, because at times their they will do their best to circulate their dollars amongst each other. As I was someone who was raised in the Bronx, New York, a very urban area, and when I started to move to other parts of New York where there was mainly, it wasn't that many of us around, you started to see they don't really circulate their dollars amongst us, but they expect us to circulate their dollars within them. So it becomes an inherent, the scales are unbalanced right there. And when we attempt to see that consumerism is good. Now I'm not on this call saying that, oh no, don't circulate, don't, you like something nice, don't put your money in that. But then this is the caveat I would ask you, how much money have you put into a black business? Did you find, even if you're looking for those pair of sneakers, did you go find a black store owner who's selling that same sneaker instead of going to the mall? Did you find that person, if you're into whatever you're into, did you at least have the opportunity to see that maybe someone who looks like you is also in the marketplace selling what it is that you're looking for? So as we start to get much more aware of keeping our black dollars amongst each other, then we start to move, even if we're still consumering, but at least we're starting to create, because now that may assist that small black business to hire some more individuals to work for them, which means there's more dollars in the community. So it becomes a circle of play, or a circle of life that helps us to become much more evolutionary, instead of us just looking at the fact that just because another community has something, we just want to get that.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest argument that I have with a lot of people is that they complain about the black business. They say, oh, hey, they too high, they too this, they too that. But then I'm like, never say that when you run your money over to another community. I'm serious.
And that's part of this, but see, that's part of I would say, that's part of the Willie Lynch syndrome. The Willie Lynch syndrome is the letter that Willie Lynch wrote in reference to how we were treated and accosted, because, we've been dealing, as much as this country is dealing with a pandemic, we've been dealing with a pandemic since 1619 in this country. So 1619 to COVID-19, you're talking 400 years. So we've already experienced that. But that letter also states that if you prop them up into a point where you're even creating classes within themselves, that, the light skin is going to be against the dark skin, the old is going to be against the young, and the young is going to not respect the old. And, you create all those little caveats, it starts to perpetuate over time, whereas we see that we may be out of physical slavery, but there's still some forms of mental slavery. That's why we have some of the areas of depression in our neighborhood, and especially when it comes to urban centers. And, people do that flight and, feel that, oh, I finally got out the hood. But you didn't get out the hood just to get out the hood, because remember, the hood made you. The hood was part of your germination process. That was part of your foundation. Like with me, and even me and my wife, as much as that we're from, urban set in Bronx, New York, when people come up to me and say, where are you from? I say, I may live here, but I'm from the Bronx. And I'm proud to say that. And people will be shocked. Like, oh my God, you made it out the Bronx. You're at this, whoa. Don't throw that curveball in it like I'm some sort of unicorn. No, there's plenty of us who have made it out, but we recognize just because we made it out doesn't mean that we ran and left that place. We still go back down from the years that I was a youth football coach for almost 10 years, and making sure that we're giving back to those young men and even young ladies, and creating atmospheres and opportunities to see, like, yes, we want you to perpetuate. Yes, we want you to get an education. Yes, we want you to do all those things. No, you don't just have to be a football player, a basketball player. We need more scientists. We need more mathematicians. We need more people in finance. We need more people of us aspiring to say that you're not just pigeon-toed into what the media or what people would assume us to be.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think the thing that I hear when it comes to that term or that terminology and phrase, getting out the hood, it's like, you know, they make it sound like you're escaping jail or something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
very true.
Yeah, and it's crazy because it's like you saying this is what I have to do to get out the hood, but then other communities, they making money off the hood, first generation, second generation, third and fourth generation. So
the thing that I've recognized, and I don't know, you may have probably seen this in your urban areas where you're at as well. And I started to share this with the young people, even when I was still coaching football. I said, look, there are things that they sell to you here in our city, in this little confines, that when you start to really drive out, I'll never forget there was one day we played a team in another state in Connecticut. And they, for some of these, now mind you, we're dealing with 10-year-olds to like 17-year-olds. And some of these kids, this was the first time they even left the state. All they knew was their little community, their little hoods, the little places that they ran with, it was limited. So for some of them to be on this bus and we're driving to Connecticut, and it's like they're seeing greenery. They're seeing more greenery because not like there's no greenery in the Bronx, but they're seeing wide open spaces. And they're like, they're trying to figure out how come our field that we play at don't look as good as this one up here. So look, these are different, disparities and opportunities that these people up here have created. But then we took them to a store and they were looking for like something like these 50-cent sodas. I don't remember the names of them, but they were looking like these, they were looking for the stuff that they readily see in the hood. And they was like, yo, Coach Clarke, what happened? I can't find this thing, or I can't find that thing. I said, why don't you think you can't find that? I don't want to know. I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. They talking about organic this and, low calorie that. I don't see that stuff in my list. Exactly. They push all the sugary stuff to you. Yeah. This is the stuff that we're starting. This is the reason why we're bringing you on these particular trips. Because it's not just about for you to play a game. It's for you to expand your consciousness to recognize, like, we want you to become much more aware of what it is that they systemically put in Black communities that they know they would not put in their community.
Yeah.
So that even goes back to even businesses. It's amazing that, certain franchisees could be of one ethnicity. Whereas, if a Dunkin' Donuts is a high probability, a Dunkin' Donuts is someone who is of some sort of Asian descent. But yet, how come we don't have more Blacks and those of color who are in those positions? Why? Because they figured out a way how to pool their resources because they're willing to work those 16, 18, 20-hour shifts to build their business because they know after a while, if they do that in a sustainable manner, next thing you know, they can start to hire other people that will alleviate them while they keep taking their money and building another franchise and building another location, build another location, build another location. And before you know it, your dollar is sustaining their lifestyle. So now we need to flip that and start to show our people that now you can take advantage of the possibilities. Like, wait a minute, not only is it about circulating your dollars, but now make sure you start putting it by doing the necessary research to put yourself in a position where your dollars are working for you instead of you working for it.
Yeah. It's funny you would say franchise because I think the one thing that I've seen, even in our community, I've never seen so many dollar stores in the Black community in my life compared to grocery stores.
Very true. Those dollar stores, and even when you look at the stocks of those dollar stores, those dollar store stocks are not $1 stocks. I mean, some of those companies are trading in triple digits. Why? Because they figured out the mantra. Those dollar stores pop up. Number one or two things. Either it's goods and services that they could not sell in other markets, which these companies buy at a very low bulk rate, which now they can turn around and sell it to you for $1. But then you go in there, it's almost like they call it the Walmart syndrome, where you walk into a Walmart saying, oh, I'm going to Walmart for one thing, and next you know, you look down in your cart and you're trying to figure out how I have like 14 things in my cart.
Yeah.
Because it's that symbolism. It's that thing to catch your eye. There's from psychology. There's from placement. It's all it's all part of the system to get those dollars out of your pocket. So when we talk about those dollar stores, the only thing I have a caveat about those dollar stores, even though my wife wants to go in there sometimes for her products, her hair products or whatever, but that's her thing. But when you start to look at some of the goods, especially the consumable items, you start to see it's not that they're substandard. Sometimes they're close to expiration. They're, even certain items that they say is frozen. Maybe it may not be grade A. Maybe it could be down there grade B, grade C. And, you just start to notice, wait a minute, why is this stuff in this community like this so prevalent? But it's not, I don't see that many of those things up here.
Yeah.
So it just makes you wonder. Something to think about. As Arsenio Hall used to tell us, things that make you go, Just think about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and I know I'm going to start some trouble with this. I think probably the biggest thing that really irks me is when you see a Chinese restaurant, and this was before COVID, when you go into a Chinese restaurant and you got all of this plexiglass. I'm serious. It's like you have to put your money in a little turntable, even with the liquor stores. You put your money in a little turntable, and then, you tell them what you want, and then they give it to you back the same way. But then you go to the suburbs, it's a counter. I'm like, and this is crazy.
Not even that. You go into the suburbs, when you go into the liquor store, you can peruse. They may even have tasting. They may even have, people sitting there saying, oh, no, you don't try that. Then try this Merlot. You didn't try this, You're not just looking for the Mad Dog 2020. So the symbolism even in that shows you a dichotomy, because what you just say is so true. When you started getting out of the urban centers, and this is another thing, even before I add to that point, about the whole thing with the Chinese restaurant, which made me laugh and made me start to think. If you really notice, especially in the hood, the stuff that they sell you, they don't eat.
Yeah.
So that's a little pivot that I'm going to do. Remember, the stuff that they're selling you, you ever catch them when it's time they take their little break, or you go in there and you're ready to order something, and you looking for your half a chicken, or you looking for your fried rice, you notice. You never catch them eating.
No.
They're never eating what they're selling you.
Exactly.
But in regards to the whole thing with the suburb versus urban, or the rural versus suburban or urban, it's so amazing that you see the different levels based upon the fact of how redlining has affected our community as well. Because I wouldn't say so much people are escaping the hood, but at times that now that they have the opportunity to do so, it becomes such a freeing process. Like, wait a minute, I can actually experience a different type of lifestyle because I moved here. But the only thing that I would tell people is that, yes, we want you to have a much more affluent lifestyle. We want you to have those trappings, not to be like them, but to be the best expression of yourself. And by being the best expression of yourself is to remember that now that you quote unquote, may have a little glimpse of the American dream, don't forget to go back and get back of it. And that's biblical. Because, it's not like when the Exodus happened, we said, oh, we're going to just take some of y'all, and some of y'all going to cross the Red Sea. No. Make sure you get all my people out. Make sure you grab the spoils. That means make sure you leave with some wealth. Because then you tell the people of Israel to sit there and say, oh, the stuff that was Egyptians, or the stuff that you can grab, and the gold and the things that will help you be sustainable and create your own economy, just leave it there. No, he told you to take it with them. So as you take this information, as you allow yourself, which I sometimes call black flight, just because you are able to move someplace else does not mean you cannot fly back and make sure that others can also come with you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I believe that black privilege is supposed to be. And being so I just said that, can you give us a definition of what you believe black privilege is? Black
privilege is when you start to forget where you came from. See, there's white privilege, which we've seen is still, is as much as this country is a blessing, there's too many instances of hypocrisy. So black privilege also works in tandem in some ways with white privilege. See, white privilege, they walk around, they feel, this is their country, that they built it, which is a lie. And all these other caveats, but then what black privilege comes into play is that, wait a minute, Black privilege is when people start to figure out how to play the game, the chessboard,
Yeah.
and then forget about, wait a minute. Okay, I learned how to play chess, so let me teach my brother how to play chess. No, I learned how to, it's like another form of craft in a barrel at another level. Because now it's as if like, oh, I know you want to get out the barrel. What? I'm going to kick you back down to the bottom. Oh, I'm not going to share the financial information or those opportunities that could be afforded to you. Nah, I'm not going to help you. At least give you a guide or show you where you can find out the information, or at least coach you or mentor you, like I do with many people, and just show you, okay, you decide to invest in this. This is the benefit of that. Are you looking for something short term? Are you looking for something long term? So when you start to bring others into the play, now you're sharing the information, and then those people will start to share the information, and then those other people hopefully start to share the information, and that's where, as we see what happened this week with the GameStop, as we talked about earlier, in regards to, this was a groundswell of people. It wasn't just like one person sitting there and says, oh, I have this information, and if we do this, no, one person couldn't push that paradigm. It took millions. Because I think that board has close to like a little bit over 3 million people who either are part of it or at least they're glancing at. And what happened was we saw a shift that shook the world financially, not the world physically, at least shook the financial world. Like, wait a minute. Now we have to start watching the fact that, we as the big guy, we can market manipulate. Now we're seeing that the individual person who, we hope is not in the market, who's just only worrying about, getting the next TV or getting, worrying about just fruits and vegetables and their groceries. Now they're starting to become aware of the market. Now there's a little shift there, and that was actually a great thing that happened.
Yeah, I'm glad it happened, because now it shows that, the little guy, can now control his own destiny. It doesn't have to be, predetermined by any, big wig company or any hedge fund manager. I love that. So, hey. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. Let me get back to these questions. I know, we've been talking a lot. So let me ask you this. How important is it for people to learn the language of finance?
Everything happens in communication. And that's one of the reasons why our community has been decimated from that point. Communication allows for not only for information to flow, but it allows for your knowledge base to grow, like all of us, regardless of what generational span we're in. The reason why we have the information that we have is that we had someone who taught us, who either mentored us or coached us into the position of where we're at now. Now, as we start to see that we're moving into a new technological space where, even 2-year-olds are able to manipulate tablets or even phones now, it behooves us to recognize that money is even moving quicker now. Money is not moving as slow as it used to be, where it's like, oh, if you want a 10% return, it's going to take you a year or 2 years. You can make 50% on your money in a day now, depending on where you're positioned, how much liquidity that you have. And that's another terminology. That means how much finances that you have on hand that you're willing to put at risk, because yes, everything is at risk. So when we start to see that, we start to create those levels and create the importance of having the language starting to permeate our community. Now it becomes, instead of, everyone looking at, how much did LeBron score tonight? You may still ask that question. But at the same time, it's like, yo, how did your stocks do?
Yeah.
Yo, what happened with your foot? Yo, your calls. Did your calls appreciate? Nah, this calls jumped up 600%. This call is a little funny over here. That's great. You made 600%. And when are you going to get out of it? Oh, I'm see if I can ride it out to get to 1,000% before it expires. And, just like I said, probably someone who's listening to this right now probably said, did he just talk Greek?
Yeah.
No, I did not. And so it is about, once you start to get the terminology, once you get the experience, once you start to put yourself in an area of a flow that allows for you to see what it is that you can have, then as I would tell anybody, especially those that I coach, you start off just with basic stocks. Don't jump into the option side. That's like running before you can even crawl yet. So you have to start crawling first. Start crawling is that, regardless of whatever app that you decide that you wish to utilize. The power is in your phone. If your phone is not making money for you or allowing you to figure out a way for you to make money, then you might as well just throw that phone away. That's just a glorified picture taker, because for some of you still running around to take pictures all day. Your phone is an apparatus now that allows you to make money, and it also allows you to be a part of the language when it comes to money. So if it's not a communication, it will die.
Wow. You know what? You just hit the nail on the head, because I think a lot of times people feel as though they're just in the black community. And this is what I saw. This is what I heard. You just get yourself a good job and get yourself a good education and you'll be okay. And I'm like, it's more to it than that. It has to be.
Well, think of it this way, and I've experienced it, as I said, I'm a father of 6. To see the fact that a young adult who has no really established credit, who may have good parents that are assisting them, all of a sudden they're so quick to say, oh, you can get the student loan. It's amazing if that same individual was to go into a bank and says, you know what, I have a great idea. I wish to be an entrepreneur. I need $25,000. I'd like to borrow $25,000 with a 6-month grace period, and then I'll start making payments because I need that time frame in between, so I can get my business structured off the ground, and then I can start making payments on this loan. You ain't gonna get that loan. It amazes me that they'll give you money, and that's probably part of the groundswell as well, where the student loan situation is now hit another tipping point. It's like, wait a minute, so you're willing to give me hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep me in some level of servitude, because that's a bond. It's bonds, man. So if you're thinking that I'm talking crazy, go back to your Bible. You're supposed to free yourself from the bondsman. So now you bonded me to all these loans that I'm sitting around now having to service and pay back. And even if I'm a doctor and I have $500,000 worth of loans, there's a reason why that doctor has to make $200,000 a year, because he's probably paying about a quarter of his salary back to servicing his loans, and it's probably going to take him at least 10 to 15 years if he's diligent to finally pay all that stuff back.
Wow. So
even at every level, it shows you how it's still some ball and chains around you. And for me, and especially how I would express it to my own children, the main thing that I expressed to them was like, look, I need y'all to go to school, especially when you're high school. I need you to go to school. I need you to do as best as possible. Your parents are here to support you. And when you get to college, you're paying college based upon, getting as many scholarships, many merits, or even stuff that's not merit. They have scholarships out there that you're black and you write left-handed. Get that scholarship. You're from a Caribbean island and small island, and they and this big institution wants to, prop up their quota. Use that to your advantage. And it's something that we learned that I'll never forget, that I learned from Reverend Ike. And Reverend Ike stated, so you have to know when it's time to be black, and at the same time know the game of green.
Yeah.
Exactly. Again, you have to know how important it is to use your black card at times, but at the same time, you're recognizing that black card is helping you play the game of green.
Yeah, exactly. I think the one thing that I heard from Reverend Ike that I love, he said, if you don't have no green power, you can't have black power. I'm serious. I was like, that is so powerful. So let me ask you this. What's the one thing that affects, our men particularly when it comes to finance? Because it's almost like, you hear black men say, man, I can't catch a break. But what's the one thing that hinders us as black men in the language of finance or even in the area of finance?
Well, part of it is systemic. Part of it, they didn't want us as thinkers. See, when I think about when you see the James Baldwin, the August Wilsons, anyone who's creative in our community, when they start to tell our stories, that means it starts to force us to think. Regardless, we talk about The Wire, which talks about, systemic things that was happening in Baltimore at one time. And people would say, why were some of these shows or some of these creative aspects in our community so great? Why? Because it allows you an opportunity to see you, regardless if it was on a stage play on Broadway or regardless if it was on your television screen within your home. And we need that. Also, we need the fact of the matter is to recognize that A lot of these individuals that are being hindered, they're hindering you on purpose because, as we stated about the GameStop issue, once a man's mind has been expanded, it can never go back to his original size. I'll say that again. Especially with black men. Once our mind has been expanded, it cannot go back to its original size. So regardless if you feel that you was that corner boy, but all of a sudden you're starting to hang around people who are talking about wealth. Even though you're that corner boy, you're recognizing, wait a minute, suppose I take like $100 a day and I make 200 days. Suppose I take $100 a day instead of me just trying to always spend money. Let's take $100 a day and just do it in this market. Then did that consistently. And you turn around over a course of a year, you're looking back and say your portfolio grew 20, 30, 40%. And you start to recognize, like, wait a minute, this money was made while I was asleep. This money was made while I was just walking down the street and I just opened up my app and all of a sudden saw, oh, that stock that I invested in went up, or that put or that call that I invested in has went up. And now that's adding more value to me once I sell those positions and figure out what I'm going to do next. The information was never given to us. It's always about our searchability and our ability to say, you know what? You put all these, stumbling blocks in the way. But now as we start to show other men that, you know what, you can know about this. Don't limit yourself to the finances. We know that there's systemic racism in education, and there were certain ways and certain opportunities that may not have been afforded to you. But you know what? I'm still going to grab you as a brother and pull you along. Now I'm going to walk with you. Now I'm going to mentor you. Because now, after a while, as I mentor you, that means you still, it's not for me as the mentor or the coach to do it for you, but I'm walking with you to say, yo, you need to do this. Yeah. Now you make a choice. Okay, I'm going to go do that. Great. So now as we start to build the conversation, I mean, it goes back to your previous question about language. As we start to build the language back up to say, look, we know that you're great providers. We know most of y'all are taking care of your kids, regardless if you're with a woman or not. And especially if you're in a very good relationship and you married that woman, you're there doing your job. Great. Now you got to take it to this next step because we don't want your body to be broken at 65 because you gave 40 or 50 years, working your back. And then, you only have maybe 10 or 15 years to enjoy it, if that. Because, when they look at the data, the life expectancy now for especially black males now, which inched up a little bit due to technology, is around 76 years. So you think about that. If you work, which hinders us because you think about that. If you work all those years, you put all that money in Social Security, which you shouldn't also, just hold as your retirement package. But you put all these years in, you broke your back, and you worked in these different areas, especially with blue collar. And you turn around, you have barely how many years to enjoy it? So it's about shifting the paradigm in regards to what we can do, especially about building financial legacy in our community.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing that I see is that a lot of people, a lot of black men, they will work a job 30, 40 years. And like you said, as soon as they retire, it's almost like they only had 2 years to enjoy it, and then they done passed away already.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and I think another thing that's sad is when in the black community that I've seen, and I'm not gonna lie, this is sad. A person, they pass away and then they don't even have insurance, and then the family's fighting. Oh God. Or worse, you got to GoFundMe for a funeral, and I'm like, oh my God. Mm. And I'm like,
and see, that's another trick, and yeah. I'm happy you brought that up about insurances. I have insurance on my children. I have insurance on myself. I have insurance on my wife. My wife has insurance on me. Mm-hmm. People say, "Oh my God, this is the old caveat because I married my wife's family's from South Carolina." Now, initially, especially when we were a little younger, they're like, "Oh my God, y'all too young to be talking about insurance." Why are we too young to be talking about insurance? When y'all talk about insurance, that means somebody gonna die. Okay, that's one lie that they put in your head. Mm-hmm. No, insurance is part of not only just to bury people, but insurance, depending on what type of policies that you have, can be created or be even morphed into annuities, which helps with your retirement. Also, they are investment vehicles based upon if we take care of our health. And see, that's the main thing. A lot of times, insurance companies would not put a policy on most of us because we were just out of shape.
Yeah.
And that, as much as that I stress in wealth, I'm also into taking care of my health measures because you see that if you're healthier, and that works with your credit and everything else, but when you're healthier, and it's easier for you to get insurance. It's easier to get insurance, especially if you get it at the right time, and you just keep building and adding onto it, and making sure that, you know, because all of us we're not going to live here forever. But as part of leaving an inheritance, if you have enough insurance that, wait a minute, my child or my wife is going to be taken care of, and all of a sudden, you know, these debts can be eliminated even though I transition. That's what it's about. So as you talk about the whole GoFundMe stuff, it's not that it's not a blessing that people are willing to say, you know, I want to help out, but it also shows lack of planning.
Yeah.
And that's one of the other things that we have to change in our community as a whole. This whole situation of waiting to the last minute to do certain things, or if we have certain conversations over certain aspects that, you know, we're wishing someone to die. No, that's further from the truth. These conversations are relevant, and as we start to put more language in our communities, maybe we'll have less GoFundMe, and even the only time that we need a GoFundMe is someone's doing some sort of crowdfunding, whereas we're just taking that and then these individuals are going to be shareholders in a particular business. That should be a GoFundMe we should be talking about.
Yeah.
When it goes back to almost like crowdfunding. But yeah, when it definitely comes to insurance, your insurance, if you don't have insurance, shame on you. You're like, nah, you know, I'm 35. I don't need no insurance. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, me, you know, I'm with my boo and this, that, that. Okay, does your boo got insurance? Do you got insurance? Now we just out here looking great. Great. I have no problem with that. Please. We know black people are the most fashionable people in the world. I love that about us. But don't sit here with, you know, a $500 pair of jeans, $300 pair of sneakers, a $100 T-shirt, and you still either live in someone's, and you still live with your mama, you have no insurance, and you just, you know, just flying by life like it's, you know, there's no responsibility. That is part of your responsibility, making sure that you're leaving an inheritance, not only for yourself, but for your children's children, because that also puts you in a space where not only are you thinking in the present, but you're preparing for the future.
Wow, that is powerful. I got to give you some applause on that. Seriously. Because you just hit on what I want to ask you next about Proverbs 13:22. It says, a good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. I think the one thing that I see, I hear a lot of people quote that last part. The wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. But then it's like they just sitting there praying and ain't putting nothing to work. And then they get mad at God when nothing happens.
Well, faith without works is still a dead thing. I'm going to say this again. Some of you know that part in the Bible. Faith without works is a dead thing. So and I'm going to go back to Marshawn Lynch. One of my, I loved him as a football player because not only the way he played, but he was so hood that he was so hood that he turned how he was so hood into now something sustainable after his career. But one of the things about it is he always used to quote, it's about that action, boss. What are you in action around? Yeah. What is it that you're doing that you're not only stimulating growth for yourself, but you're stimulating growth for others? And that leads to the reason why there's this systemicness when it comes to poverty in our community. Why? Because too many times we're sitting there just being, you know, it's like being a couch potato. Well, I know I need to get up. I know I need to be active. I don't know why I got this diabetes. I don't know why that part of my body's gangrene. All these are systemic things, or hypertension. All these are systemic based upon the fact of what has been positioned to put within you. You know, I worked 12 hours that shift. Now I got to come home and I'm going to eat this greasy food. I'm going to eat this salty food. I don't know why I'm like this, but this is just how it is. No, it's like how it is because you haven't positioned yourself in action. Now that we're starting to recognize that we are the people of the sun, we need to be active. You need to be in the flow of certain things that's going to generate for you not only in your health persona, but in your wealth persona. And there's different levels and different aspects that we all have to be mindful for. And it's about being perpetual action. It's not about doing it one day. It says, well, you know, I went to the gym one day. When's the last time you've been in the gym? Oh, I was at the gym 2 weeks ago. Wait a minute. You're paying for this now? You're paying for this for whatever it is to be a part of, and you're not utilizing it? Nah, I don't have time. You have time to Netflix and chill. So we have to recognize, what is it that we're putting our focus on? Are we putting our focus towards things that can build us and build our communities? Or do we rather stay in a space of comfortability, which doesn't allow us to grow in the long run?
Yeah, that's definitely, we have to grow in the moment. And that comfort zone can kill us. I'm telling you. You know, you say, oh, hey, I'm going to do it tomorrow, and then tomorrow turns into a week, and then the week turns into a month, and then the month turns into a year, and then 2 years, and it's like, hey, what happened? Oh, man, I totally gave it up now.
Now, procrastination is one of the main killers in our community. People would say it's diabetes or heart disease. No, procrastination is the number one killer in our community. This is the reason why. Procrastination does not allow you to get to your fully expressed self.
Yeah.
Procrastination will keep you from magnifying and magnetizing what it is that you're supposed to have, because not so much that you were being lazy, but you just kept putting it off. Oh, it's like, you know, I'm going to get, as you gave a great example just now. You know, we keep sweeping stuff under the rug and keep sweeping it into the corner. Keep sweeping the dust into the corner. Next thing you know, you think that your house is clean, but then you look at one corner of your house, the dust is probably as tall as the ceiling. So why didn't you get rid of this? Well, you know, I was going to eventually get to that. I just kept sweeping it over there and just kept sweeping it over there. And that doesn't work, because in order for you to have the clarity of mind and clarity of your spaces and clarity of the things that are going on around you, you must recognize that your ability to see a task, do a task, complete a task, so you can move on to the next. Not so much complete and say, you know, forget it again, because you'll always use that as part of your foundation. But by seeing it, doing it, and completing it, now you have the areas to keep going.
Yeah.
Because money keeps going. The stuff that your body is as a temple shows you that it keeps going. And without all these processes and without allowing these habits to be formed, that's going to allow you to grow, then you start to kill that thing called procrastination, and then you're in the action mode. And as long as you're in action mode around something, regardless if you're delegating it or you're doing it yourself, as long as that you're in action mode around it, then there's a possibility for growth.
Yeah, definitely. So let me ask you this. How important is financial sustainability? Because I hear a lot of people say, yeah, man, we were able to do it. We opened up a business, but then, you know, grand opening, grand closing.
Well, that goes back to planning. And one of the things that we're noticing, especially with the pandemic hitting, the brick and mortar, not saying that you can't open up that shop, but your shop better be online as well. And this is the reason. The dynamics have changed. We're not in the age of the Industrial Revolution where everyone was just looking to build stuff up and build these structures up. And this pandemic has also proved that even when we finally get out of this thing, which we can tell is definitely not going to be in 2021, but as we continue to get out of this thing, there's going to be a lot of real estate that's going to still be empty, because these businesses have already started to pivot. Businesses, I mean, left and right, even some of these department stores, the ones that are surviving, are recognizing now they're starting to put more of their attention into their online than even their brick and mortar. So as we start to talk about sustainability, we must be aware of the changes of time. As we were sitting here still talking about the time when the Bible was first being discovered and written about, regardless if it was the Old Testament or the Second Testament, you would start to see that, wait a minute, we're not walking around here, you know, with just, you know, lace straps around our feet and, you know, just walking on rocks. No, now we have different apparatuses of shoes. We have different modes of transportation. Things have evolved. And the thing that continues to kill our communities, that sometimes we don't see the changes happen and we continue to do an old thing. Even in the church, sometimes the new way of doing something is fought against by the old way. Now, we did it like this and this particular apparatus like this for the past 150 years. Well, that's great. But we need to be, kind of current.
Yeah.
Well, that's something must be off or something's going to be. Look, I understand that there's some apprehension. But at the same time, that's why you keep yourself viable and sustainable by having those around you who recognize the climate of what's going on now. Because those are the ones, that's why certain institutions are so relevant right now that are 100, 200 years old, because they were smart enough to say, wait a minute, changes are happening. Okay, let's get some of these young people, these people who understand what's going on, and allow them some leadership position that is going to allow us to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now we must start to do that, especially in our own community.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad you hit on that whole thing about having to change up and pivot, because I see that in churches. It's like, I mean, when COVID hit, I'm like, man, it's almost like you gotta pry the keys to the church door out of some of these pastors' hands. It's like, yo, pastor, you gotta get online. I'm not giving up these keys.
You need Facebook, Zoom, and what else? Facebook, Zoom, or any type of apparatus that allows them to be seen on these streams, these different platforms. They're not of the devil, because that was at one point that was permeating the church too.
Yeah,
that Facebook is the devil. The Instagram, oh my God, that's just, oh my God, what is that about? Even I remember in the '80s when I was still a young pup, and hearing my own parents tell me, when I was inquiring about a computer, no, I heard the computer's the devil. We're not going to have one of those things in my home. And, I fought, and thank God I was good in school, and my father was like, no, we're going to get him one. And, no, that's just of the devil, that's just, I said, whoa. But you start to see that it wasn't something that I blamed my mother for or looked at her with some sort of disdain. It became the fact that that was what she was taught.
Yeah.
That's what was put in her mindset. But you didn't recognize that there were other kids in other communities that sitting there starting to create basic code and COBOL and all this other stuff, and ended up becoming billionaires off of this because they sat there and had these apparatuses in the home and started to take advantage of these opportunities. So you always got to look at it from a systemic standpoint. There's certain things that were said to us as black and brown people to keep us subservient. And when we started to break out of those shells and started to recognize, like, wait a minute, this is not the devil. Yes, I need to learn about this. Yes, I need to grow in this. Yes, I need to be exposed to this. Yes, I need to figure out what you're doing. The same way that you're playing your chess, I'm playing my chess. I'm not going to sit here and blame the system when I can learn the game of the system. And that's that's another thing that we really push to people. Don't worry about changing the system, because you're going to spend too much energy trying to change a system which is not changeable, instead of recognizing, wait a minute, if I know how to flow and be as wise as a serpent and learn what they're doing, and then I bring that back to our community and say, yo, these people over here are doing X, Y, Z. Now, if we do this, and that's when it all goes back to, as we're talking about GameStop.
Yeah.
Yo, you see they're doing this stuff over here. Now what? No, this is what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. You know what they're doing over there? We're going to do that over there. Nah, it's a system, and the man got me on my neck. Just stop all that foolishness. Take your little dollars. This is what we're doing. You're going to get this. I'm going to get this. You're going to over there going to get that. We as a community, we're going to sit here in this room. We're going to start doing this. Let's start doing this.
Yeah.
How much of your portfolio go? Oh, my portfolio went up 20%. Good. That's 20% that you didn't have before. Keep going.
Yeah.
How much your portfolio went up? Oh, it went up 30%. Great. Keep going. Nah, should I just take the money out and this, that? No, keep going. Keep adding. Keep adding. Recognize there's times that you're going to pull out some funds, but you're not pulling out those funds just to spend it on things. There's responsibilities, and that's why we talk about also dealing with your credit and making sure you don't have any bondsmen around you, because if you have less money going out paying to bond or to credit, to service credit, which there's certain credit levels that are good, but if you are servicing less credit that's taking funds out of your pocket, that means you have more money to invest, which means you start to create that sustainability that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that is so powerful. So let me ask you this, and I know this is not part of the questioning, but why does it seem like when it comes to black people, it's almost like we have to be exceptional, but then when you have other communities, they can just be regular, but it's almost like we have to be, Harry Houdini and pull off the impossible to almost make it?
Well, I would say this. First of all, that's also systemic. So it's not so much that, sometimes we do have to play at 110, 120, sometimes maybe 130%. But you have to recognize where that energy needs to be going. If you're playing at 130% for yourself and not 130% just to prove something to other people, see, that's where we're starting to see that the switch and the shift is happening. It's okay to play at 130. Play 130 for yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you play 130 at a consistent level for a while and you turn around and say, wait a minute, I'm a millionaire. Or I got this much money in the market and I create a business over here where I'm employing people that look like me and I'm investing in that business over there where, since I'm just an investor, I'm getting a return without me having to do one single thing. And it goes back to something that I even heard 50 Cent say. And we should think about that because, 50 Cent was someone who came from the hood. And they asked him, why would you allow your character on Power to be killed off? People was laughing like, yo, 50, why would you do that? He said, son, I'm going to put you on some game. Same way Jay-Z attempted to put people on game with his 444 album.
Yeah.
But when 50 Cent says, wait a minute, I'm an executive producer on this project. That means any power that comes out, I'm an executive producer. I own a piece of it. And this thing is going to go on perpetually, in perpetuity. Why would I keep working on screen when I could be in the background, pushing buttons and just pointing fingers?
Yeah.
You have to recognize when it's time, even like the great athletes know when it's time to really get off that court, and if they position themselves correctly, they can end up being, I went from a player on this court to now I own a team, like a Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
So we have to start to see that playing at 130 is not a problem. Is that at one point in time, we was playing 130 to be provable to other people to say, oh, please see me. Oh, please respect me. Oh, please like me. And now we've gotten to the point to recognize that, wait a minute, I don't need you to like me. Matter of fact, when it comes to the color green, I don't need you to like me. Because you may have a different temperament, you may have a different thought pattern about my community, and then you turn around and be shocked at like, wait a minute, I'm worth $100 million. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm happy that you looked and frowned upon me, but I'm worth 200. And you're like, well, good, because I did my 130% for myself and to build up others in my community, not just to be hopeful that you let me into your circle.
Yeah.
We create our own circles. We need to start recognizing that we must create our own circles, and that's what I do through coaching. That's what I do through the mentorship. That's what I do through the seminars. It's about creating our own community, sharing the wealth of information. It starts there. Now, you can't force anyone to do anything. If people will still make their relevant choices, and people will still sit there and say, well, I'm nervous because scared money doesn't make money. But I'm nervous. I may lose some of my money. Yeah. Everything in life is at risk. When you drive down, when you get in your car every morning to drive to a job that you can't be 5 minutes late or 2 minutes late, you're at risk. You could be hit by another car. You could be, you could slip and fall. Anything can happen. Life is about risk. So why would you not position yourself where you can see some sort of appreciability in your money, in some areas, appreciability in your health measures and get healthier, and you're going to call that a risk? No, there's risk all around us. But those who are successful know how to navigate risk. And that's why certain communities are a little ahead of us. But we're going to start that shift to make sure, not that we catch up to them, but now that we start to put ourselves in a position to make sure that we're going to get ours. And it's not about changing the system. It's about, I'm going to use your system against you. And you're going to turn around and figure out how in the heck did y'all get here? That we played y'all game.
Exactly. Here's a question. And I've heard this, and I'm like, okay, Lord, you're going to have to break it down. Is there such a thing as a generational curse of poverty? Yes.
And it starts from, as I shared earlier, with the Willie Lynch speech. And it shows in the Bible when the children of Israel, God had to allow that 40-year time frame to disappear before that next generation was able to inhabit the land that was promised to them. So the reason why generational curses can or generational curse affects, certain levels when it comes to a poverty mindset. It's like that woman who's living in public housing and then her daughter, inherits the apartment and then her daughter inherits the apartment. Now, we're not saying that, anything wrong with public housing, but after a while, no one has allowed themselves to grow past that point. They were so comfortable in that sense that, they're shooting around here and they're carrying on instead of us figuring out, wait a minute, how could we change the energy around here so these kids can have something else to do? Because all it is just energy being expressed in another form.
Okay.
So when we start to recognize that generational curse of poverty, it can be broken, and it's starting to be broken. Why? Because now we're at a level and in a conversation that's allowing us to say, you know what? Yeah, we used to be like this, but now we're going to this. And as long as that we're in language and in communication and conversation, and we even make sure that we let our young people know they don't just have to be sports figures, that they can be other stuff that can be enacted back to the community, to their relevant communities, then we start to see that shift go. So yeah, there is a generational curse, but it's being broken each time we see a new black writer. Each time we see a new black poetess, like we saw at the inauguration, it gets broken after time. It's building blocks. We can't expect a curse just to disappear. It's not going to disappear. It's only going to start to lessen the more and more that we change the landscape of the foundation, and as we evolve from it, not degenerate it, not disagree with it, but it's just, okay, this is where we were, but now this is where we're going. Yeah. And as long as that you're willing to work with me in this process of where we're going, this stuff about poverty is not going to be amongst us.
Yeah, exactly. So I look at it like this. If there's such a thing as a generational curse, I know there has to be a generational blessing.
Of course. And the generational blessing starts and goes back to what we're doing here today.
Yeah.
That's part of generational blessings. The generational blessings now, we're starting to not, say that this information is only for myself or only for me and mine. No, this is for everyone. I encourage people. People sometimes ask me questions. Those are I coach. Those are I mentor. Those who I'm intently working with one-on-one. Those I work in a group setting. And they're like, yo, why are you sharing this? I said, yo, the game is already here. And I think about it maybe from the standpoint of me being a football coach at one point. I look at it as my playbook. I always deal with my people from the standpoint of a playbook. Look, if you know what the plays are, and you implement, you be in action, we do the plays correctly, then there's no reason why we can't be successful and get the championship at the end. So when we start to look at the generational spaces that we're in now it's not about, okay, what am I doing for myself? But you recognize, if you look around, you start to see other people are starting to become, at least starting to move towards some level of affluency, then your job, especially if you're a coach or a mentor, is great, because that's what great coaches do. They bring out the greatness in others. Not about just the greatness in themselves, but the greatness in others. And when they start to realize that, wait a minute, I can do this too. Yeah, you can do this too. Now run with it. Take it as far as you wish to go.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That is definitely that's priceless. So let me ask you this: your Money Mindset Academy. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. Basically, as I started to learn and to develop, I started to recognize that as much as that we have other individuals out there who may be from other communities who are profit of certain things, some of the caveats of how they deliver just doesn't work. As I look at my wife as a black therapist, the reason why she's flourishing because she's at a space where people are just happy to be dealing with someone that looks like them. So I recognize that when I started sharing certain information, people were just happy to say, you know what, I'm happy you look like me. I'm happy that, you're willing to, because I know nothing. Great. And people would say, why would you say that? Because that means you don't have anything that's going to clutter up the space. You have nothing, and if you're willing to learn, you're willing to be mentored and coached into it, then by the time you start to get the relevant knowledge, you're just going to be able to thrive. You have nothing else that's going to encumber you. So with the Money Mindset Academy and all the different ways and seminars that I administer, it's about sharing the information and shifting and shifting those conversations, because we had, terrible money conversations in our community. Can't do this, don't have that. You don't understand, our subconscious state does not take jokes. So when we start to shift our language, when we start to shift our thinking, when we start to shift the way that we even think about money, not about having a love of money. I don't love money, but I understand the wealth is there for me to have, not just for me just to explore it. It's because God wants that expressed to you. God wants to see prosperity for me. God doesn't want me to sit there and just wait and buy to get my mansion in the sky. Yeah. I'm supposed to have my mansion here. So as you start to recognize that's the main reason why it's about generating the spaces where you're not sitting there just being subservient anymore. And that's what the Money Mindset Academy is about. It's not a season or a reason why people should be in a space where they can't move towards where they wish to be, especially when the apparatuses are available to you.
Wow. You said it right there. I'm serious. It is available. And I love the fact that you said that, you're not waiting until you get to heaven. And so many people, they have taken the wrong attitude when it came to God blessing them and God prospering them. They feel as though, hey, I'll have it when I get to heaven. I'm like, well, what about the living that you have to do today? I feel like God wants to bless you right here, right now. And I'm like, you ain't got to wait till you get to heaven to have a mansion, even though Jesus said it in the Word. I'm like, no, you can have it here on earth and in heaven. So, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
What is your approach to coaching? How do you coach, people when they're trying to change financial habits? What's your approach?
Well, my main approach is that I start with everyone where they're at, because everyone can have different areas of information, expertise, and competency. And it's about moving someone from not knowing to being an expectation, because that's the next step. Expectation is that, okay, now we're going to start going through these things. You're going to actually start getting into action. And then once that ball starts rolling, now you start growing towards competency, and ultimately you want to get to mastery. So most of the people that I work with, they're probably in that mode between expectation and competency, because we all have access to information since everyone has a smartphone these days. So that's not the issue. So now we have to start to build the fact that now you're expecting a particular action to happen in your life, and now we're going to put you on the field. We're going to put you in the game so you can start seeing that way. And now you have to do the steps. That's one thing I respect or I push people or emphasize, especially when I'm working with people, is that you have to be in action. You can't say that I'm coaching you and you turn around and say, well, I didn't do this week, or I didn't fulfill this assignment, or you told me to go watch CNBC half an hour every day, or find out about this information. Why are you having me do that as my coach? Because you're starting to see that I'm getting you systemically in your mind used to finding out and searching out for information. So if you're not going to be in action, those individuals that I approach, it's about getting them on the field, working them out. I mean, and I'm saying this often in terms of from the football field. When you come to practice, way before we get to the game, you have to come to practice. Yeah. Practice means that you're going to go through the calisthenics, and then you're going to be going through all the stuff that you may not necessarily like to do, but you're going to recognize later why it's needful. And then as you go through that, then it's time for game time. Game time is now in competency. Okay, now I'm ready to put you in the game, and now you're going to start doing all the things that we've discussed and worked on, so you can start to see what happens when you're on the field. And you don't want to be that player on my team that's like, Coach, how come I never get in? Coach, how come I never get in? You've done the practice. You put in the work. Have you shown to me that you've done the research? Yeah. You know the plays. You don't know the plays, I'm going to help you. I'm going to put you in the game, because if I put you in the game, you're going to get hurt. Because number one, you have no knowledge. You have no competency. You don't know what we're running or the terminology or the things that we're doing. And then next, you're going to come back to me and say, oh, my God, I got beat up out there. They hurt me. Or a parent saying from a youth level, a parent goes, why did you put my child in the game? And then I look back at the parents and say, put your child in the game. Because number one, they have the same uniform as the rest of the team. Number two, I put this onus back on you as much as I feel bad that the child got hurt or whatever, or felt whatever occurred. I say, why didn't you make sure your child was at practice? Because your child specifically was on that field looking crazy, not knowing what was going on. And that goes back to they weren't here. That means they weren't here. They weren't competent in what they were able to do. And since they weren't competent that they were able to, what they were supposed to do, they ended up getting hurt. So now it's the same thing in life. If you're not competent in the information, if you're not willing to do the approaches, if you're not willing to change, because it's about changing and evolution, if you're not willing to put in the effort to change and evolve, then the thing that's going to happen to you, you're going to wonder why certain results are not happening, or why is my life still the same way? Not that the coaching is bad, is that sometimes the player just doesn't want to evolve.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they don't take coaching as serious. I think a lot of times people, they look at coaching as tutoring. I'm like, nah, this is not academic. This is life. I'm serious. So I totally get you, because you got to be aware. You got to show up. You have to be present. I totally get that. So, can you tell us, what's the one thing? What's the one thing that a lot of your clients they struggle with? Because I know when I was coaching, I used to have a problem with patience. Like, okay, when am I going to get this?
I would say my wife says I have a lot of patience, but at times I've noticed that with certain things, see, I have patience with you if I know that you don't know. See, that's where I would say that I would be extremely patient with you, because with changing certain habits, it takes time.
Yeah,
you can't expect someone a habit, depending on what it is, going to take between 21 to 30 days for it to take hold, and then if you can stretch that out to 90 days, it becomes a part of your lifestyle and it becomes permanent. So, my patience level, especially with someone who doesn't know and they have certain bad financial habits, goes back to the factor of, says, look, okay, you seem to not know what you're doing, so now we're going to start with a plan. And if the plan is to, even before I tell you to even jump into the market, you come to me, and I'm your coach, and I said, lay out your finances, and you show me that, you're in debt up to the wazoo. Okay, now we already know what the first game plan is. Oh, I want to jump into that stock that you tell some of your people, or just share with them what they can jump into. No, I'm not putting you in that. My first game plan with you is to get you out of debt, because it makes no sense for you to have this big old albatross of funds that is still lingering. That's getting 22.9, 25.9, 26%, 19.9% interest, and you're talking about, I'm going to jump into the market. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Because number one, unless you're a day trader and you think that you're going to just get these crazy windfalls that's going to eliminate the debt, it's going to be hard for you to service both. But if we focus on helping you with those bad habits or those things that got you to the point that you're at now we can put you on a nice little timeline and streamline that. As we eliminate those, now we can start putting you in those markets that you can start to see your money work for you. Because the worst thing you can ever do is tell someone, okay, just put your money in the market. Yeah, we know you got $50,000 worth of debt that's paying all these crazy different interests and all. Yeah, just send them the minimum payments. No, you still bonded. You're still at the mercy of those credit companies. Why? Because even if you have great returns here, eventually that means you're going to be starting to sell some of these positions just to pay this stuff down, instead of saying, if you had this stuff paid down, now you can start to fly on this area. So changing bad habits is the first thing, especially it is that, they did not teach us anything about financial education, regardless if it was elementary school, middle school, high school, and only if you're really searching it out in college where you start to get a little bit of the tricks of the trade. But ultimately now it's about reshifting the focus and putting the importance on the educational aspect so that you can recognize, if we eliminate this, then you have the opportunity to do this.
Yeah, exactly. You're so right, because I remember in school, home economics. I'm like, and all we did was learn how to sew and bake. I'm like, man, come on, it's more though. You say economics. Now I'm looking back, I'm like, we didn't learn nothing about money. And then I got to high
Oh,
school.
no, home economics was there to make you a good house person.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I went to high school. We had accounting, and I'm like, okay, I like that. And then when I got to college, you know, got into economics, and I'm not going to lie, that tore my head all up because I'm like, how did he figure out? I mean, it was just crazy taking economics in college. But I look at it now, I'm like, I wish that we would have had something that would show people just how to have a checking account. You know, real life, everyday situations instead of, you know, I watched my dad live from paycheck to paycheck, and now I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and I'm like, that should not be. We have to begin to learn, you know, how we can break that cycle. And I'm thankful for what you are doing right now. I'm so glad that you said yes to God for what you're doing. Let me give you some applause.
Appreciate that.
So how can people start to follow you? You know, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. They can join the Facebook group. They're on Facebook. It's a private group. We share certain information only in that group. And that's the Value of Money Collective. Also, you're able to follow me on Instagram. I have 2 Instagram accounts. One is Greg Clarke with any money mindset. So that's Greg Clarke at Greg Clarke Money Mindset. Or the other one, which is just Greg Clarke MMA. So you can choose either one to follow me at. I put content on both of those. Also, now I'm on Clubhouse since I have this Apple phone. Since I've invested in the company and decided to finally get one of their phones. And you can find me on Clubhouse at Greg Clarke MMA. And also, you know, we have a great seminar that's coming up in about 4 weeks, which is the Value of Money Personalities, where we're going to deal with your money personality around money. See, everyone has a personality. We had a previous one where we dealt with money conversations where we were shifting people's mindset and how they're conversating with money, how they thought about money. And now we're going to delve into this one on February 27th. It's about the personality. There is a personality that you have around money. And if you don't shift that, or if you don't position yourself for a level of growth, then it's going to be hard for you for it to be sustainable because, as even Reverend Ike said, money is a high-class woman. It only hangs around those who respect it. Yeah. So when you think about it, money is supposed to multiply. And that's why when I think back to Reverend Ike, it's money is a multiplier. You want the money to go out to come back. And, you know, for those who need a biblical reference, it's just like looking at the story of Matthew 25, starting at verse 14 through 30. And you're talking about the 1 talent, 3 talent, 5 talent. You know, Jesus blessed the person that did the 5 talent. He blessed the person that did the 3 talent, but the 1 talent we cursed. Why? Because they didn't go out and did anything with the money and multiplied it. All they did was, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to bury it, I'm going to put it in a bank account, and it's going to sit there and do nothing. Even though the bank is going to use that money and leverage it and go out into the market to make millions of dollars, but you sit there with your little money sitting here because you're scared. Scared money doesn't make money. Money not in action for it to multiply, for it to double, triple, you know, whatever the exponential multiplication is on it. Those possibilities are there for us. But it's also about being in the opportunities of recognizing that it is our responsibility to move around, to develop what it is that our credit name will be, or what our name will be known as in the marketplace. And by doing so, that's how we end up with the opportunities that we can afford to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I think I'm gonna definitely be on that conference. I'm definitely coming to that because you hit the nail on the head. Because there's so many personalities, even in marriage. You know, what's my wife's financial personality? What is my financial personality? And a lot of times, some of the personalities, they just clash. Especially if you got one person that wants to spend and another person wants to save. Whew.
Oh no, we're going to deal with all of that in money personalities, and that's the worst. And I will say this, and I'll give this as a little nugget treat ahead of time. If there's no agreement, see, only it's biblical. Only time that God is present when two or more are gathered, and also when you're in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So the worst thing you can ever be is in a relationship where there's no financial agreement. Where was the conversation about your financial agreement? It's not about just getting caught up in the fact that this woman is, 36, 24, 38. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
She's a brick house. Now, is she going to break your money? Or you not recognizing that the fact that maybe your woman, your partner, because she's not considered subservient to you. Now, you're saying you pick this woman to be your partner, and maybe she's much more financially adept and can handle the finances, but you want to just throw in your ego as a man and say, oh, my God, I'm the man. I'm supposed to be in charge. That's great. But every wise king knows how to delegate.
Yeah.
But just because you prove more that you're the king when you can not relent or give away your power, but when you can actually share it and see, like, you know what? My wife is actually better at, growing this money. So I can make the money. Not that I don't make money, but I can make the money. But all of a sudden, I've noticed every time I make the money and I pass it off to her, all of a sudden, there's certain things with doubling and tripling it. But am I going to mess that up? Am I going to let my ego get into the way? Am I going to let that personality in my soul screw up this good thing? No, dummy. You give her the money, and if y'all are on one accord, next y'all recognize y'all are both comfortable. Y'all are both moving towards levels of affluency, and you're both moving towards some sort of sustainability that's going to help you. So that's just a little extra nugget, especially when it comes to relationships. There has to be a financial conversation. If there's no financial conversation, y'all are both in limbo.
Wow, that is so powerful. So, Prophet Clarke, can you give us the dates for that again?
Yes, that next seminar will be February 27th, Saturday, February 27th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The reason why I stress that, because there have been times I've had seminars that people forgot, oh my God, at 9 a.m. So you showed up at 12 noon because you're on the West Coast. 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The seminar is probably going to be 2.5 hours. It will be done by 11:30. So if you're in the East Coast, you're talking about 11:30. If you're on the West Coast, you'll be done by 8:30 in the morning. You still have the rest of your day to do whatever you wish to do. And that also stimulates you to join the private Facebook group, to start to search out if you need more personal attention or personal information, or if you would like me to mentor you or to coach you. All those opportunities are always available. And, but definitely February 27th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, The Value of Money Personality is going to be a great seminar. And I encourage all of you to take advantage of that.
All right. So how can people get tickets? Or
Well, let's see. I would say they just need to go to www.gregandcherylclarke.com. Again, that's www.gregandcherylclarke.com. And then when they get to the website, they're going to see the flyer. Once they click the flyer, that flyer will bring them to the landing page. Once they get to the landing page, they can purchase their ticket. The ticket is only $141.41, and there's a magicalness to that number, which I'll break down during that seminar. The reason why people are like, why is the price $141.41? It's $141.41, and you'll see that why we stimulated that number during that particular seminar. But that number, because we as it is scripturally, God is omnipotent and omniscient. So when you start to recognize the different sciences that are around you, you start to see that you can generate your space by understanding. Being wise and being a learned person will always put you in the space of growth.
Wow, thank you for that. So, hey, Prophet Clarke, can you leave us with some words of encouragement and wisdom?
Oh, definitely. One of the things I would encourage you today is that to recognize wherever you're at. Listen to what I'm saying. Wherever you're at. I don't care if you feel that you only have a nickel to your name. This is where you can start. Start really assessing your life. And this is what I mean by assessing your life. Start looking at all the different things that make up who you are. Start really asking yourself certain pertinent questions. Start recognizing the fact that even wherever you are at this particular moment, even if you don't like that thing, you can pivot. You can make a different choice. as the Bible says, choose ye this day. We have choice every single day. We have choice to say, are we going to move in an appointed path that's going to take us down wherever? And certain things, certain people may like being in that adverse possibility. That's why there's no judgment in it, because technically it's the choices that you made. As much as that we can say that certain things that were propped up or put in our communities or even related for us to not be as great as we wish to be, the people have shown time and time again, regardless of this, in the wisdom of our scholars, of the entertainers that have put out stuff through art, through the athletes who have shown how we have evolved to show that we're not the subservient race, or as you know, in World War II, when they were shocked that Jesse Owens was able to, beat, the master race, that we're just a group of people. And I want you to recognize that. When you start to generate in a space that you know that you're a great person, and you may not be doing great things at this moment, but you can start to make a new choice to say, you know what, I'm here, that I'm going to get on this journey that's going to bring me to a new level of growth and expectancy that's going to take me to wherever I wish to be. And you can do it. It can be done. You know that you're in debt, start looking at yourself and start changing your paradigm. Start talking more about finances in your family. Start really getting into the spaces where it's not only about what it is that you can do, but how you can help others. And if we do it as a community, then exponentially we're going to grow by leaps and bounds. And I want those other communities to turn around and say, what happened here? Wait a minute, they're not just running around trying to buy sneakers and clothes. Now they're talking about stocks, bonds, getting healthier, going on walks, cutting out some of these stuff, not eating all that salt, not getting rid of all that grease. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, they're starting to live longer now. They're starting to have these right conversations. They're starting to put the right things in their body. They're starting to put their money in areas where it's grown for them. And that's what it's about. And it's not about shocking them. It's about shocking us and recognizing that now we're getting out of comfortability and we're willing to go into the unknown. And it's amazing. Same way that Jesus told his disciples to go out into the deep. When they went out to the deep, they were shocked to see that the bounty that they were able to get. And actually, they should have had more, because they didn't even bring all the nets that Jesus told them to bring. Now, we're in a position now that I'm willing to coach and mentor you, to tell you and show you to go out into the deep and be willing to sit there and say, I'm way out here, good. Because when the windfall hits, then you'll be able to see what it is that was better than being on the shoreline where we're safe, playing in the sand and just making a castle. So I hope that word will encourage you to recognize you can start wherever you're at, but you just have to start. You have to be in action around your work. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I got to give you some applause on that. So, hey, Prophet Clarke, I so appreciate you today. I'm not going to lie. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your words, sir.
Look, I appreciate you, Prophet Temple. I appreciate you reaching out to me. I appreciate your listeners. I appreciate your audience. I appreciate you, because by you allowing yourself to be utilized, not used, but utilized in a space where you're generating not only a conversation, but you are generating a space where people can start to see that their financial legacy is at hand. And as we do so, not only will your name be good in the market, but God says that this is a season where we're going to continue to magnify and see the importance of where it is that we wish to go. So I thank you for that.
Oh, hey, no problem, sir. I so thank you.
You do the same. Thank you very much for this time, and for your listeners. Just take all it starts with one step. Take the first steps today, and you're going to see the change start to happen.
All right. Thank you for that. All right. I'll talk to you later.
No problem.
All right. Bye.
All right.
All right, guys. That was Prophet Gregory Clarke. I'm telling you, hey, you better go to his conference. I'm telling you, because you definitely have to find out what your personality is when it comes to finance. What is your spouse's personality when it comes to finance? What is your boob's personality when it comes to finance? Because I'm telling you, finance is one of those things that can start off little, but it can definitely turn big. So, hey, guys, follow Gregory Clarke. He is on Facebook. He is on Instagram. The Value of Money Collective. I'm telling you, this brother is going to take you places. And that's the God knows truth, because not only does he have the wisdom, but he also has a prophetic eye. And that's the one thing that we need right now. We need coaches as well as prophets to give us information and insight so that we can maneuver in life. And with that, guys, I just want to say, hey.
Walk in the truth that makes you free every day. Follow Brother Leon on all social media outlets.